Welcome to this podcast episode of the Hidden Heroes of Tech. This is the show where we shine a light on the brains behind all the successes we see across all industries. It takes more than text to get a product in front of a consumer. People from sales, go-to-market, strategy, marketing, finance, operations, and of course those techs. We'll talk with those we don't know much about and hope to learn some nuggets of wisdom. Our sponsor for this episode is the revenuedoc.com. So today, I've got a really interesting guest, and I'm really pleased to have her here. Her name is Lisa Hammett. My name is Mickey, and welcome to this podcast. So who is Lisa? So Lisa, before I bring her in, and I'm just waiting for her to ring the doorbell to come into the actual recording studio room. Lisa is an amazing person. I met her not so long ago, and I was so shocked at what she does to help corporate organizations. I really wanted to get her on the show. So she's this dynamic transformational TED X speaker. She's an international best-selling author, a certified positive intelligence PQ coach, and a wellness expert. She helps leaders in organizations in healthcare to create work-life balance to increase productivity, profitability, and well-being. Now, what's interesting about Lisa is she's got 26 years of experience as a leader in the corporate retail industry. And Lisa knows firsthand the toll and stress it takes and the burnout that can take place on individuals. So after a transformative health and wellness journey where she actually lost 65 pounds, and she's going to tell you about this because it's important about how she got to where she is today, Lisa decided to dedicate her life to helping others achieve their health and wellness objectives. So I can't wait to actually get Lisa on the show. I'm just waiting for her to ring the doorbell to come in and we can introduce her. Oh, here she is. Let me get her in. Hey, welcome, Lisa, to the show. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you, Mickey?
Great. So let's get straight into it. So Lisa, I just made your introduction. Tell us what it is that you do, because it's really interesting. And the headline for the show is actually something called Mastering Mental Fitness for Peak Performance. So what does that mean? Give us an intro.
Great question. So, mental fitness in a nutshell is your capacity to respond to life's challenges with a positive versus a negative mindset. And as a certified positive intelligence PQ coach, I am a mental fitness expert and I help individuals. Really in all industries, but kind of my niche is healthcare. And I help them really understand how their thought patterns, their negative thought patterns impact their behavior and their performance. And when they are mentally fit, and when I help them develop that mental fitness, they have mental clarity, they have improved communication, they can look at things from the big picture, they don't get stuck in the weeds, and they're happier and they're healthier.
Awesome. Well, that's a great introduction to the topic. So I did give you an introduction. Is there something I've missed that you want to tell us about yourself?
No, I think you've done a great job. Like I said, I'm a certified positive intelligence PQ coach. I wrote a best-selling book, From Burnout to Best Life. And I'm also a transformational speaker. And I speak on, health and wellness, work-life balance, mental fitness, goal achievement, etc.
Brilliant. Now, what I want to talk about briefly, just adjusting my mic here, before we go into the core topic, I just want to find out who Lisa is. And I've got some questions for you. Do you mind if I ask you those questions?
No, please do.
Now, this might sound silly. What did you have for breakfast today? And this is quite insightful. Go for it.
I had a multi-grain English muffin with almond butter on it and some mixed berries and a couple cups of coffee.
Is that by accident? It sounds very healthy. Is there something behind that? Why you picked almond? Was it almond butter?
Almond butter, yes. For the health benefits, I am very focused on my health and well-being, and especially the first meal that you have of the day can really impact how you feel physically and mentally. And I've found that when I eat a breakfast similar to that, I am better focused and do a better job in my day,
Oh, wow.
actually.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing food is a big part of mental fitness. At some point, we'll maybe get into that. Okay, another question for you. This is a real one. how are you doing today for real? You talk about mental fitness, but how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, actually. I was able to get out first thing this morning and go for an hour walk. And I'll be honest, on the mornings that I have an early meeting and I can't do that, my day they still go well, but maybe not as well. So I really had a nice brisk walk for about an hour. And then I came back, had my breakfast, did my, devotions, my PQ reps, I was in a great headspace. So today is going fantastic.
Oh, that sounds great. I'm glad you're in that mood because we really need you to be in a positive mood for this podcast. Awesome. So, here's an interesting question for you. If you had a choice between two superpowers, being invisible or flying, which one would you choose and why?
Flying, because I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie, and I've done rappelling, I've done parasailing, I have not done bungee jumping, and I haven't jumped out of an airplane, but those are two things that I aspire to do. And they're just a big, you know, adrenaline rush. And I love the fact of being able to look at things from a different viewpoint, really looking at the bigger picture.
That's amazing. I'm guessing you're going to get a different vista if you're jumping out of a plane for sure, or doing the bungee jump.
True.
That's awesome. Okay, let's continue with this. One more question. Okay, this is a little bit about how you navigate or conduct yourself, I guess. So, what is your spiciest opinion that most people disagree with? And it doesn't have to be about work; it could be about anything.
I'm a big advocate for women's rights and what they do with their body. And actually, not just women's rights, people's rights in general.
Okay.
That means, if you want to carry a gun, you can if you have the proper documentation to support it. So it's just it's your life, and you should have control over your life. What you do, and that goes for vaccinations too.
Mhm.
So I'm throwing a lot of stuff out here, but I
No,
believe it's an individual choice. Let's just put it that way.
it's the foundations of what America was built on,
Yes.
ultimately. And that's the key thing,
Yes.
so much not noise going on about, people's rights right now. It's anyway, let's not get into that. That's not what today's about.
Yes.
But great. Okay, so thank you for sharing some of that. We're going to come back to you later in the show in terms of learning a little bit more about who you are. But the actual topic of today's show, as we mentioned earlier, was mastering mental fitness for peak performance. And a subtext to that is unlock the secrets to mastering mental fitness for peak performance in every aspect of your life. So maybe you can kick off by giving us a bit of an intro. What does this actually mean?
Absolutely. So, as I had mentioned, mental fitness is your capacity to respond to life's challenges with a positive versus a negative mindset. And we have thousands of emotions that bubble up, a lot of them from our subconscious, and most of them are negative. In fact, 80% of what we think about is negative. So, it's a wonder some days that we can get out of bed. So it's really learning to manage those negative emotions so they don't influence our behavior in negative ways, basically. And there are techniques that you can use to basically shift from that negative mindset to a positive mindset.
Oh, that's interesting. So, are you talking about potential strategies to respond to challenges people meet in life? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. And I'm going to use an example in the workplace, let's say, and you're having a conversation with a colleague, and you're starting to feel those negative emotions kind of bubbling up because it's either their tone of voice or maybe what they're saying that's making you, I don't know, a little off putting. It could be off putting, and you might, I don't know, that negative emotion. So, what you could do is you could focus on something that you can see on their face. So both of us are wearing glasses. So if it was you or myself, focusing on the shape and color of of the glasses, or it could be the shape and color of the eyes, and or the nose, the shape of the nose. But what that does is it takes the focus off of the negative emotion that's actually causing those negative, feelings to arise, and possibly the desire to just interject when maybe that's not the right thing to do at that point in time. So it kind of quiets that. So you can just listen more objectively from a different lens. So when the person stops talking, then you're able to respond with clear headed focus, and you're not necessarily just going to be reacting.
That's interesting. So I know you work largely in healthcare, but that resonates with me a lot. So I work in the tech industry and in one of the big fan companies. I won't shy about it. It's Amazon, AWS, should I say? And I recognize, quite often when a lot of people are trying to put their ideas forward and people disagree, it can get a little bit tense. So an example would be I was speaking to somebody only this morning, and I was there to explain what my job was and how I was there to help them. And this person, I'm sure they were feeling negative about me because they were putting up fences around, please don't come near me,
Mm.
I'm not going to change. And I'm like, oh, how do I take this? So in that situation, I was feeling a little bit rejected. What do you think I could have done in that instance?
In situations like that, you have to remember that
Mm.
the way a person is reacting to something that you're saying is really about them and has nothing to do about you.
Oh, interesting.
Unless you're really getting in their face and just
Mm.
saying, "You're a loser. What are you doing?" All these really antagonistic things, which clearly you weren't doing. Then when there's a negative reaction like that, it's all about them. And maybe they had a bad experience
Mm.
with somebody, earlier on in their career, or it even could be a family member that made them feel a certain way. And for whatever reason, the information that you were sharing, or your tone of voice, or what have you, triggered that, and they responded that way. So it's kind of recognizing that is very important, and not taking it personally, because of course we want to be liked. Everybody does. And it's easier said than done sometimes, but it's really not to take it personally, and just to think about it that they're coming from a different place and trying to understand it from their perspective.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I was talking to you not so long ago, and you had this point you made, the importance of perspective and asking critical questions. And I think that sort of lends what you just said lends itself to that a little bit. So if I'm trying to take, so I'm trying to understand, how do I personally not take it personally, personally not take it personally? There's something weird about that one.
No, personally.
Yeah, yeah. How do I get perspective? And what is a critical question that I can start to think about to try and not get too hung up on the situation?
I mean, you could use those mental fitness practices too, because any negative emotion that you're experiencing, we call them a hijacking from a saboteur. And that's
Oh.
basically just a negative emotion that is materializing. And you could do, I talked about, what you could do if you're confronted by somebody, but you could do simple things like rubbing two fingertips together and really paying attention, to the fingertip ridges, are your fingertips dry, smooth? What's the temperature of your fingertips? Really focusing in on something that you can hear. It could be obviously really paying attention to the timbre of the other person's voice. And again, it's taking the focus off those negative emotions that you're feeling that are causing you to take what they're saying personally, and it's diffusing it so that you can then respond with mental clarity, and not just respond in such a way that is defensive. Let's put it that way. Because oftentimes when we feel rejected, or that we're not being heard accurately, we can get defensive.
Well, this is interesting. So I've got more questions, but I think what I'd like to do is, and I think it's important, if you don't mind, I'd like to sort of switch gears and come back to my next question because I would like to understand a little bit about your personal journey because I think there's a lot of wisdom in how you share your personal journey, and I think you do it quite a lot. Could we just switch gears a little bit to that because I think it starts to bring some of the answers to the questions that I've got going forward as well.
Absolutely. So, as you had mentioned in my introduction, I spent 26 years in the corporate retail sector and I reached burnout. And in my case, burnout felt and looked like I had slammed into a cement wall. I was just completely done. I remember waking up one morning and the world just looked gray, devoid of color. And I had been suffering for months. And I mean, 6 months or more with chronic migraines and digestive issues. And my marriage was rocky and I was exhausted because I wasn't sleeping well. And I remembered on Sunday, even if it was in the morning on Sunday, I started to dread going to work on Monday and I would physically make myself sick because I was so stressed out about it. So, in a moment of desperation, when I recognized that, my mental and my physical health, and I failed to mention I was 65 pounds overweight as a result, I just quit that job, really without an exit strategy of how to replace a high salary. And it was great for my mental health and well being, but it did result in bankruptcy because I wasn't thoughtful about how to replace my income. So I share all of that to say that a lot of these things could have been prevented. I mean, I certainly could have done a better job managing my stress. And had I done that, I wouldn't have just left without a plan of how to replace my income. But that propelled me into a lot of self development. And I then lost the weight, became a wellness coach for 11 years. And then during the pandemic, I went through an intensive life coaching program. And the last year, I completed my certification in positive intelligence mental fitness. So, and I've really leaned into my experience of that burnout to really help those individuals who feel that way because it can be prevented. And when you allow yourself to get to that point, it's a painful recovery. So I like to talk to people before they get to that point.
It sounds like you're creating some sort of alignment, so that your mental state is not going that far out that you end up in this situation. Is that correct?
True. True. And it's recognizing the warning signs or those things that are causing you to be in misalignment. Like the headaches that could start as like a tension headache and you're just, oh, I'm just kind of tired and a little stressed today, so I kind of have a tension headache. But before you know it, pretty consistently, every day over weeks on end, you're taking Tylenol or ibuprofen or whatever to try to mitigate that. And then it's manifesting in other ways as well. And oftentimes it is in poor sleeping. And the number one reason why we don't sleep well is stress. Sure, there's COPD, that can cause us, sleep apnea or other issues. But bottom line, the majority of the reason why individuals don't sleep well is due to stress.
That's interesting. So
Yeah.
I'm going to be vulnerable here, and if my wife is watching this, she'll recognize this, and she always tells me, I get stressed, and there's a couple of things that's happened to me, and I don't think I've overcome them. One is I eat, and I end up becoming
Mm.
overweight, and I'm still struggling with that, and I've developed sleep apnea, and I still have it, and I don't know why, and I don't think my job today is as stressful, but I think the years preceding has caused this health issue, and it's not easy for me to overcome. Um, I I believe stress eating is a huge problem, and when I've learned about sleep apnea and lack of sleep, that's really fatal in some people.
Mhm.
So, is there some advice around stress eating you could give some of the audience?
Absolutely. Stress eating, or I call it emotional eating, because people eat for various reasons other than being hungry. They could be bored, they could be tired, they could be stressed, they could be happy. I mean, there's all different reasons why people eat when they're not hungry, which can put on weight. But in the stress situation, what happens is when your body is really stressed, or when you're really stressed, your body starts to overproduce cortisol. And inflated cortisol causes weight gain by itself,
Mhm.
but it also will cause cravings for high fat, high calorie foods. So, the first thing that we want to reach for are those processed carbs, or those sugary snacks, or those, sugary drinks to give us quick energy, or because that sounds good. And that just perpetuates the problem, because those aren't healthy. And I'm not a proponent of saying, oh, you could never have a candy bar, or, in my opinion, you can have anything in moderation. Obviously, if it makes you sick, don't eat it, or if you have an allergy to it. But, it's all about moderation, and it's about learning how to control that emotion and change the habit of, when you're feeling that emotion that is causing you to want to eat, replacing it with something else. And a good way that you can do that is something simple like saying, okay, I'm not going to have it for 5 minutes. Okay. I'm going to go do something else for 5 minutes. But don't tell yourself you can't have it, because when you tell yourself you can't have anything,
Mhm.
you want it even more. So tell yourself 5 minutes, or maybe 10 minutes. And then after that amount of time, if you're still kind of desiring it, then you could say, you know what, I'm going to wait another 10 minutes. And then if I decide that I want it, fine. And if indeed after 10 minutes you still want something, go ahead and have it, because you've broken that immediate response, which
Mm.
forms the habit. So now, maybe there you are hungry, or, what have you. So have a small bit of whatever it is that, you're craving. But the key is to, distract yourself, or find an alternative way to automatically just reaching for food. And, the good news is that emotion will dissipate. It's not going to stay with you forever. And once that emotion dissipates, so will your desire to emotionally eat.
Are there other responses to emotion and stress that people can end up leaning towards, other than eating? Have you, in your experience?
Yes, I wrote a blog post about it, and I think it was yesterday, I posted a social media post on this about, unhealthy behaviors, and it can also include like shopping, like compulsive shopping. And where this can get you into trouble is if it is causing financial hardship. Let's say you have a lot of credit card debt, and you really want to, stop, or, gambling, gaming, whatever. In moderation, again, it's not a problem. But if that is your ongoing source of feeding an emotion, it's going to get you into trouble. So it's finding an alternative way to feed that emotion, and not necessarily feed it. You don't want to feed it per se, but to get through the emotion, and that could be go for a walk, for example, or call somebody, just pick up the phone, call somebody that you respect,
Yeah.
or, do something that you enjoy doing that doesn't involve whatever that desire is, like getting online and ordering something from Amazon, or
That makes
what have
sense.
you. Yeah.
So, I know you're a positive intelligence PQ coach. Is there any link to what that title is and what we're talking about here? And is that how you help people?
Yes, I mean, that can, those mental fitness exercises that I, had shared, that can pertain to anything. It could be like unhealthy habits that you want to let go. One way that you could use, one of those, we call them PQ reps, they stand for positive quotient, or those little micro meditations, is when you're feeling that emotion, is to do one of those micro meditations, because it will take the focus off of that emotion that is causing you to do that unhealthy behavior. So it's pretty impactful.
So, in your line of work, do you actually help and coach people to learn how to do these micro meditations and other techniques?
Yes, absolutely. So, at the foundation of my practice is positive intelligence, mental fitness, and I offer a 6-week course that takes a deep dive into the individuals, we call them inner saboteurs, those negative character traits, I guess you could say, that are common. They take an assessment and then they get a better idea of their behavior so that they can recognize it. Because again, a lot of these emotions bubble up from our subconscious, and we don't even know that we're thinking them because they are just ingrained in us so much that, we just automatically react to them.
Yeah, and I just want to sort of extend on that. So, we talked about the techniques to you shared a technique which is, hold back for 5 minutes and see if you really want to do it to break that habit, the regularity of the habit. But, negative voices in your head, that hold you back from reaching your full potential. I guess it starts, you know, I know sometimes I don't have the willpower to go, I'm going to wait. I said, no, it's all over. It's done. I need to go and do that. Expand a little bit on that for us.
Well, again, then I would say to, use those PQ reps or get out of the environment. Just put yourself in a different environment that will not encourage that negative behavior. So, don't go into the kitchen, go outside if you're at
Right.
home, or don't go to the lunchroom or down to the cafeteria, if you're in an office environment, or get away from your computer. Go outside, even if it's just to stand outside and, feel the fresh air. Just
Yeah.
move your location.
I guess the other part of this is, let's take it back to the root cause. I want to ask you this question. It's really hard, the things that stress us out, do they really matter? And at the time they're stressing you out, of course they matter, but do they really matter? Do you have a view on this? Because I think you've mentioned it somewhere in the past as well.
Yes, and you were describing actually, in the positive intelligence world, what we call the navigate sage power. And sage refers to your right positive brain. It's where we want to spend most of the time, because when we are in that positive headspace, we have clear headed focus, we have peace, calm, we're happier and healthier. So, one of those sage powers again is to ask yourself, as your older, wiser self, if you were zooming in to the end of your life and you were there and you could see this situation, would it really matter? And I would say the majority of the time, probably 99.9% of the time, no, it doesn't matter, because we tend to catastrophize. That's just human behavior. And we get stuck in the weeds, and then we just allow ourselves to be enveloped by these negative emotions. And once we start down that path, it's hard to focus, to because we're just so enmeshed in those negative thought patterns.
So I'm going to sort of put another slant to that same point that we just discussed. This idea of prioritization and letting go of unnecessary worries. Because I guess, is stress and worry the same thing? Is the worry that creates the stress? And what is the idea of prioritization and letting go?
It goes back to what you had just asked before. It's like, is it really matter? And yes, constant worry or anxiety can lead to chronic stress and can impact your health. So, sometimes it can be beneficial to just do kind of a brain dump and write down all of these things that are swirling in your head, and just write it down on paper. And sometimes just the act of looking at it makes you realize that,
Mm.
okay, yeah, maybe that's not as bad as I thought. And then looking at it from a different perspective, kind of going back to a previous question that you had asked, if somebody, a close friend or family member or a colleague, was having a rough time and was really fixated and worried about something, and they started to get down on themselves with those negative thoughts, like, oh gosh, I'm I screwed up, or, I don't have any willpower, or this just isn't working for me, or what am I going to do? They're going down that self-deprecating path. What would you say to them? You would
Mm.
be encouraging to them.
Yes.
You would say it's going to be okay. It's tough right now, and gosh, I've been there. I've been in situations where I felt the way that you do. Show
Yeah.
that empathy. It
Right.
doesn't necessarily mean that you had to have gone through that experience, that exact experience, but you understand how they're feeling,
Yeah.
and just recognizing that, and by putting yourself in that perspective, you would realize that you would treat that person very differently than how you're treating yourself.
That's really interesting. One of the things that I see inside corporate organizations, a lot of this, I'm going to call it negativity, quite often starts within team settings as well. And we don't speak up at the time. So I wanted to ask you, maybe for the audience here, that's where I see a lot of this stemming from: the worries, the stress, because, and then the self consciousness that arises and the anxiety. Is there some sort of technique you can, one thing out of the many things that you teach, that you could offer the audience in terms of how to handle negative responses in a team setting and not getting affected by it?
I would say the same thing about, learning these mental fitness techniques,
Mhm.
to kind of quiet those negative emotions. I mean, it's it's hard in a team setting when it's a toxic environment, and that's, in my opinion, that's a direct result of the leadership. Now, there's a fine line, because you want to create a safe space for authentic, open communication. And if problems are arising, then you want to be able to discuss them, but you want to discuss them in a positive way, as opposed to just saying, oh, this doesn't work. Oh, we're so behind um, our target. And then it feeds itself.
Mm.
So, it's going through some of these things, like, are we fixating on something that really we can't control, for
Yeah, no.
example?
Yeah, that's really interesting. Um, let's a- amazing snippets of wisdom there. What about other experts in your field? Is there something, or there's one idea that experts in your field say that you actually disagree with?
The one thing that I disagree, and I don't like it when I hear this, is the term failure. And that you have to fail in order to grow, and failing forward, and all these terms that we've all heard. And I don't believe in failure. Are there challenges? Absolutely. Are there times that we do something that we could have done better? Absolutely. It might not have been our finest hour, but to say that you failed, that to
Mm.
me is the ultimate negative criticism. And that does not make you feel better about yourself. But to say, you know what? That might have been a little challenging, but wow, what did I learn? And in situations that are really challenging like that, to where somebody might say, I failed, wow, you're never going to do that again, are you? You
Mm.
won't,
That's
because you
no.
learned. You learned, and that's great. And you can share that learning with other people so they don't do that. So to me, that's a positive.
Yeah, no, that's great wisdom there. Thank you. Um, Been amazing, and I just want to switch gears a little bit to come back to you a little bit, and a little bit about you. So, first of all, with all the work that you've been doing, who are your favorite people to follow? And I say in business, but really in your field, who are the people that inspire you?
Brene Brown.
Okay.
I absolutely love and adore Brene Brown. In fact, I keep putting it out there when I'm on podcasts to say I'm going to meet her one day. She lives in Houston. I live outside of Dallas, and I am putting it out in the universe that I am going to be a podcast guest on her show. At some point, I am hoping that she will see this, but I might just reach out to her someday and just pitch
Well,
myself.
I'll
I
create a
don't know.
trailer. I'll create a trailer of just that snippet, and I'll say, "Hey, you need to invite Lisa to your podcast."
I
Awesome.
just Yeah, I think she's amazing because she's so authentic and she's
Hmm.
not afraid to be vulnerable and to share, situations where, well, yeah, I kind of screwed up there.
Yeah.
But, it's a great learning. And she's so humble and I just adore her.
So just for the audience, could you tell us a little bit about her and what she does? Because not everybody in tech will know who she is.
Okay, Brene Brown is a great thought leader. She is a researcher. She researches a lot of different concepts, but in most cases, it's pertaining to behavior, human behavior. And her book that is probably she's most recognized for is Dare to Lead. And it talks about, and you don't necessarily have to be a leader within an organization because we're all leaders in certain capacities. We might be leading certain projects, or we could be a leader, in our church, or doing, I don't know, philanthropy, or whatever. We're all leaders at some point. And it's really just learning how to be brave and to step out there. And she calls the term rumbling with vulnerability. That's a big term of hers. But yeah, she's a huge thought leader and
That's
author.
awesome. I'm going to put the link to the book below, so anyone wants to look it up, they can look it up.
Yeah.
So, what's the favorite part of your job?
The favorite part of my job is talking to individuals and really seeing them experience a light bulb moment where they're like, "Oh, wow." It's like, aha, now I understand why maybe I've been reacting this way, or now I understand how I can make these positive changes. And it doesn't have to be monumental, but it just has to be, the right time, the right place, the right environment. And I love seeing that on people's faces. It makes me so excited. And secondly, I would say I love being in front of engaged audiences. I'm a transformational speaker and I speak to large audiences at conferences, or, at corporate settings or what have you. And nothing makes me more excited than to talk to a room of really engaged people and get their feedback, to
Yeah,
get them to engage. So,
I get that. I get that. So, I'm going to do a quick rapid fire, a few questions.
mhm.
So, what's your favorite book or books of all time?
Well, in the I guess personal development space, it would be Positive Intelligence, which led me by Shirzad Shamin, which is what led me into becoming a certified positive intelligence PQ expert, and then Atomic Habits by James Clear. That is amazing. That's how we can form just all kinds of healthy habits, sustainable habits. So I would say those are two of my favorite books.
And so, you recommend everybody reading those books?
I do. I think you'll learn so much about yourself. It doesn't matter where you are in life, what profession you're in. It's great for people in the tech industry. I think they'll really understand the science, especially behind Shirzad's book, Positive Intelligence. They'll really understand the science. But Atomic Habits benefits anybody.
I'll put the links down for the books in
Okay.
the comments below. So, what's your favorite movie or show?
So my husband and I recently binged watched Suits.
Oh, good. Yes.
And
Uh,
oh man, did I get sucked in. We both got totally sucked in. And it's very plot twisty. But what I loved about it was the character development. The character development was so great. And
yeah.
everybody kind of had their quirky behavioral tendencies, but it was an exciting ride. I love that show. Love
Yeah,
it.
I think we got sucked into that as well, me and my wife. It
Yeah,
was amazing. It's like, "When's the
it
next
was.
season? When's the next season?"
I
We
know.
yeah, it's
I'm
awesome.
sad it's over.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, one more. What's your favorite meal?
My favorite meal. Well, if it's a certain like genre of food that I eat probably most often, it's maybe Mediterranean. I love Mediterranean food. I love falafel, dolmas, hummus, Baba Ganesh, all that. I think that's really good. Um, as far as, going out to like a really nice restaurant, I love a good French meal,
All right.
or going to maybe a steakhouse, a really nice steakhouse. So,
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So where can people go to learn more about you? Because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people in the audience that are going to go, I really want to get in touch with Lisa. So where can they go to learn more about you?
the best place to go is my website, and it's Lisa Hammett, HAMMETT.com. And you'll learn about my book. You'll learn about my speaking engagements. You'll see snippets of those, including my TED Talk. And you'll learn about me as a person and just my coaching business.
Awesome. I'll leave the website link down below for anybody who wants to reach out to Lisa. Um, what can people expect from you next? What's the big thing that you're working on next?
So I'm working on expanding on a group coaching program. And as I had mentioned earlier on, I have this 6-week course that I can run individuals
Yeah.
and teams through, but I really want to define more of a group program. And that's really what I'm working on right now. And then by July, I told myself by July of this year, I will have the outline for my second book.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. Looking forward to that. Everybody look forward to that when it comes out. And will you publicize that on your website? How will you let people know?
Oh yeah, I'll let people know. I'm
Okay.
not going to have a published book this year.
Okay.
It definitely
All
won't
right.
happen. But I'm going to have a good outline. I'm trying to decide if I want to do a second edition of my existing book. Brene Brown has done that, and she's done a really good job where you add content to it, so it is almost kind of like a new version. You might change up the cover.
Got it.
So I haven't decided yet.
Awesome. In terms of the topic today, is there one final thought you want to leave with the listeners that we haven't talked about that you really want to share?
I would say that if you are experiencing any of those symptoms that I might have mentioned, like if you're more than just averagely stressed, I don't even know if that's a word. If you're experiencing tension headaches, or you're having trouble sleeping, or whatever it is, heed those warning signs, because they don't just go away. We have a tendency to just say, well, I'm just going to power through it and it's going to go away. No, it can lead to something like what happened to me, or something even more serious, where your health is really
Mm.
depleted. So reach out to somebody, even if it's a friend, a family member, a coach, a counselor, a mentor. Just talk to somebody, because the act of
Mhm.
actually talking to somebody sometimes can really alleviate a lot of those emotions. And there's, so many resources out there that can help
Yeah.
you. So really heed those warning signs.
Awesome. And what was your favorite part of this episode?
Oh, that's a tough one, because I liked it all. I thought it was great. I liked how you interwove, kind of my journey to how I serve clients, to, you know, t- uh, how people in the workplace, how, they could use certain mental fitness practices, and then just asking fun questions, about myself. So I thought you did a great job. And I wouldn't say
Awesome.
there was a favorite part. So.
Awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And how can our listeners support you in your work?
Well, again, check out my website. I do write a monthly blog post. And if you like content, then, sign up to get my monthly blog post. I send out an email on that. And then I'm also very engaged on social media. There are links on my website as well. LinkedIn is my primary platform, but I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube as well. So yeah, engage with me. I would love to chat with you.
Yeah, so I guess we can get all those links and I can put them in the comments below. So everybody out there, you don't have to write these down. We can get them all for you. So with that, we've come to the end of today's podcast. I want to say thank you to our guest today, Lisa, and it's been a true pleasure to have you on the show. I hope you all enjoyed the actual show itself, and I hope you took some wisdom out of it. Please don't forget to subscribe. Please don't forget to subscribe and click like to the episodes. The Hidden Heroes of Tech will be on YouTube. The full episode will be there, also on any of your audio platforms, so you can get to listen to Lisa on any of those platforms, Apple, Spotify, etc. So here on, I'd like to say thank you for joining me. I look forward to speaking to you at the next episode, and speak to you soon. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.